Good evening, world. This is Steve Rao, the host of World Politics on Pod and Roku TV. Sorry, I'm having some issues with the lighting on my screen, but want to welcome you to the show where we talk about global politics and an increasingly disruptive and turbulent world. I'm going to open up the show today, and then I've got to run to another meeting today for work, but I'll be back next week. I'm going to start trying to be here more on the hour with Mark Lee. In the minutes I have, I wanted to open up today with just some analysis of what's going on globally. First of all, there's been concerns about Russian space weapons, and we're worried about that. There's been attacks in Ukraine. The war keeps rumbling on. No sight of a ceasefire yet in Israel. So as we are mounting two wars right now, Israel and in the middle of Ukraine, we also have all eyes on the presidential election in the United States. Almost half the world's population is up for election this year, but all eyes on the presidency of the United States. On Monday, we celebrate President's Day, and we're going to talk about the presidents of the United States. It started with George Washington, the first president who inspired us with the Revolutionary War and becoming the first president. Not kings and queens, but a president of the people, someone that came from the private citizenry. And since that time, we've had 45 others that have held the office. We've heard the cool and soothing words of Franklin Roosevelt during the Great Depression. We've been inspired by John F. Kennedy as a country, as he called the young of our nation to serve in what he would call the new frontier. Ronald Reagan reminding us of a shining city on the hill. Barack Obama, the first Black president. Today, the current president, Joe Biden. And of course, let's not forget the elephant in the room, Donald J. Trump, a billionaire bankrupt 3 times, a celebrity on TV, who said he was going to make America great again and came in. He used Twitter, attacked. He said the elections were rigged, and he's got America more divided than ever. But guess what? Despite many, many criminal accusations and charges against him, he's still leading in the polls to be the Republican nominee. What does this mean for the world? Well, a Trump presidency would take us a shift back to isolationism. It would actually force us to address the border issue and perhaps once again continue the policies of bringing jobs back to America. But make no mistake, Trump is a showman, and he wants to show the world that he was wronged by losing the presidency and wants to run the country again. The point I'm trying to make in all of this is that American politics becomes so divided. It's become so ugly that we often get concerned. I get concerned. Is it what we want to be perceived like in the world? There used to be a time when people would look at the presidency. They would look at America and say they can have a transition of power within a matter of seconds. But today, we say elections were rigged. We say they were stolen. We say terrible things about the opponents. And it's really brought the presidency down for our children and grandchildren to watch, rather than it be the office of our nation, not of kings or queens, but one of us who may not agree with the opponent when they win the election, but agree that they're going to go lead the country in a direction. And if the American people don't like it, they can go back and put another president in from another party. But there's a lot at stake in this world today with this election. Are we going to continue the Joe Biden policies of Bidenomics, or will they reverse back to lowering taxes for the wealthy and doing different things? Now, as an analyst and commentator, I will say that not everything Donald Trump did was bad as president. He actually created a sense of purpose in the White House and came in with an agenda of getting things done. COVID was the monkey wrench, got him off track. He said a lot of crazy things, and we'll see whether any of these criminal charges stick. But we do know one thing. This will be the last presidential election with Joe Biden and Donald Trump leading the ticket. And the next presidential election, the president of the United States would have to be at least someone born in the 1950s. I say for America, that's a good start. Mark Lee, let's go ahead and get started. I ad-libbed a little bit there, but it's an exciting time in American politics. All eyes on Trump. The point I was trying to make is it's just gotten so divided, so divisive that, there used to be a time when you would have the two come in and they would debate on the stage and the American people would make the decision within a matter of minutes. But the way this election looks, it's either going to be decided by the election, it could be decided by the Supreme Court. If the court decides that he's not fit to be president, if he's charged with the crime, then what happens?
Well, I mean, there's some talk that there could even be another debate as well, because even though he would never debate any of his Republican candidates, apparently former President Trump is already calling for a debate with Joe Biden and all in that space. So I guess he's trying to have a debate before they've even been nominated and all along those lines. But I did hear that on Twitter and a number of other places that they are talking about his call for a debate, because I think he did that recently and everything. And he was saying that he didn't think that Biden could handle a debate with him because of some of the issues around his memory. And there's the whole report about this one of the agencies, I forgot which agency it is, but they had done a report into his health and his mental health. So there's definitely a call around these notion of a debate before the debate, because I don't think that's ever happened. But hey, that could be new and all along those lines. We do have some other folks that are joining us, and we'll bring in.
Let's go ahead and bring them on. Rick Rosner, I've got to leave in about 2 minutes, but I set the stage and I'll be back. We got Sasha Starr. He can update us about Ukraine. I may try to call in on the phone, guys. I got to catch a flight out for a day trip, an evening trip, and I'll be back tomorrow. I'm flying a lot. I did last month. I did 15 cities in a week, so I've been crazy. And Kimberly Calhoun, looking forward to working with her to bring in American politics very soon to a studio coming to you, not a theater near you, a studio near you. But we're really excited about American politics on the new station, World Intelligence Network. But Kimberly Calhoun, we would not be out here without her. She's a great entrepreneur. Always good to have a female perspective. And also our founder with us. But Kimberly, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. And thank you, Steve, for all the work that you've put into this. I appreciate it.
Well,
Safe travels.
Before I leave, I'll be back tomorrow. But I wanted to just open up to Kimberly. Rick Rosner had a point, but I was just trying to open it up about, all eyes on the United States presidential election. Primary started here in North Carolina, where Kimberly and Mark and I live. I just want to know, like, what people in Canada are saying about this. What are people around the world? I mean, we often forget that half the world's population is up for elections. And guess what? Africa, many Latin American countries going dictatorship. Obviously Russia, although, Sasha, Putin said that he wants Biden to win. Is that true?
No, I wouldn't put a lot into his wishes. I think this
that might be AI Putin. But Kimberly, before I leave, I might try to call back in, but I just want to get your insight before we go to Sasha and Rick. What are your insights of some of these things going on today?
I think it's just a lot of political pandering. Trump just likes to keep his name in the news. I just think personally, I think he's got way too much on his shoulders to give the country what we need from a leader. And I don't think Biden has been everything that we've needed. But I just think that whenever you ask someone their opinion about either or, you hear their political prejudice opinion. If they are a Trump fan, they're going to say something ridiculous about Biden. And if they're a Biden fan, they're going to say something ridiculous about Trump. So I just don't think we're getting any truth anymore. I think that our country would benefit if we would get rid of the parties for a while and focus on the policies and the people.
That's a great
point. You were talking about presidential history. Since Trump became president, there have been 4 national surveys of presidential historians where they rank the presidents. And in the 4 surveys, presidential historians, most of them liberal, some of them moderate, some of them conservative, ranked Trump 4th worst, 3rd worst, 2nd worst, and all-time worst. And Biden, there's only been 1 since he's been president. He came in 19th. So,
well, and that's an interesting point. I'm going to go. I have periodical somewhere about the ranking of presidents. I got a magazine somewhere. I'm going to try to find it tonight. But, I think that it's interesting to see kind of like, how we rank presidents. And I'm going to go to Sasha, and then I've got to chime out. I might try to call back in. I usually don't like to do that. But what do you think, Sasha? Trump, one of the worst presidents? Obviously, I know you're not a big Trump fan. Do you think there's merit in that?
Well, I don't understand how he may not be the worst if it's obvious crook and a criminal. And finally, things started to move in the right direction. So the first trial starts on March 25th. It's engraved in stone. This is my birthday. So I will remember this date for sure. I will not miss it.
Absolutely. Well, I believe in happy endings. So I'm going to end with...
What was interesting is that he was done in 3.5 minutes. He appeared and he started to talk, and then all of a sudden the judge saying, okay, it's all over. It's done. 25th of March. It's a date. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. That was it.
Well, I'm an optimist. I believe in happy endings. I'm going to end with this. I just wish it was like...
one. The man has to be in jail. That's a happy ending for everything, and all the discussion about elections. I can't even figure out how people seriously discuss election between Biden and Trump when Biden is the president of the United States of America, and another one is a crook and soon to be convicted criminal.
But to be facetious, what if he's visited by the presidents of the past, like Christmas Carol, and then he just wakes up tomorrow and he's like, hey, we can all get along, and it's a happy ending? I mean, that's the only thing we can hope for. We know it's not going to happen, but call me an optimist. I'm looking for a happy ending.
Well,
the presidents of the past.
Ending.
And on a more serious note, I didn't want to bring it up today, but we are going to have a serious discussion about guns in America, because way too much gun violence occurring.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that on World Edition.
Yeah, we talked about World Edition, but I'm going to talk about it next week. We're going to have a show dedicated to gun violence. How did we get here? What are the solutions? Is it something that we can pull off? Are we going to continue to see? Are we going to live in a world where we have to have metal detectors in our schools? We can't do parades anymore.
Steven, there are hundreds of millions of guns in a country. There must be gun violence. You cannot say, well, let's take it down a little bit. You can't. When there are hundreds of millions of guns, how can you do it?
Metal detectors won't do anything. Even setting up our schools as if they are military compounds. Well, guess what? There have been mass shootings at military compounds. There have been shootings everywhere. Until we do something with guns, we're always going to have mass shootings.
Well, I think it's a mental problem. I think until we figure out the situation, I think it's attitude. I think it's laggership. I think a lot of people get pushed to the point they think they have to use a gun, as opposed to teaching to people other alternatives for resolving situations. Because I grew up with guns around people and we didn't have this kind of problem. I think it's what we've been taught through TV, through video games. And I know you disagree, but we didn't have this problem, Jatovi.
The problem is we cannot use video games and TV for an excuse anymore, because every country on this planet has TV and video games. The same TV that we watch is the same TV in the other countries. The same video games that we play are the same video games that played in the other country. The thing is, we use those as excuses, but still do absolutely nothing with actually putting restrictions on and actually treating guns. Yes, we need to treat guns more as a responsibility, just like a car. We need to put insurance on guns. We need to do a lot more. Blaming it on TV and video games gets us nowhere, because again,
I blame it on leadership. Leadership.
So we have 450 million guns for 250 million adult Americans.
That's what we can count. That's not what.
Well, it's hard to count because, people they don't volunteer in for, and we don't register every single gun. But by 2032, we will have 2 guns for every adult in America. And we have social media propaganda encourages stochastic terrorism. Stochastic terrorism is where you bombard a ton of people with crazy stuff, and the crazy people will get just enough more crazy that they go out and shoot up a shopping mall.
When I see a mass shooter and I watch how they strategically, a young person strategically go in, they're dressed up in warfare and they're strategically going in, and nobody trained them how to do all of this stuff. A video game did, movies did, movies probably more than that, but they've learned how to strategically go in, shoot things. They didn't learn this in a shooting range. If you guys ever been to shooting ranges, we don't sit there and learn to dress up and go in and shoot a bunch of people. We shoot at bottles and moving targets, but we don't sit there and go in and strategically go into a room. And I've played the video game.
But you can't,
again, every country has video games. The same video games that you're talking about playing. It's an easy scapegoat because it's a new entertainment industry and it's blowing up. But it's not video games, it's not movies and all this other stuff that we want to blame. It's us. We have to really start restricting we have to restrict these weapons and start looking at how camouflage is cool and all this other stuff. Yeah, they learn. You can watch whatever, but it's not from the games that's causing the gun violence.
Inspiration. I think people are being taught to hate and use violence as opposed to their words. And yeah, other countries, they don't have guns and they do have video games, but if somebody wants to kill someone, they'll use a knife, and we've seen that. They'll use a machete and we'll see that. So I mean, I think it's at that, and I think it's an overload of just one-up hate. But also something else that's bothering me is, and I've listened to this the other night on the radio station, did some research, is the availability of all kinds of drugs to these kids nowadays that's desynthesizing them completely. Like, have you heard about the gas station heroin? I mean, that's ridiculous. They can literally go buy heroin on our shelves now. It's not labeled as heroin, but they know it's under the label of Zaza, Devil, a couple of other things. And it's, Rick.
So I play the last video game I played was Tetris, but I still know how to do an attack plan just because you absorb it from the culture. When I walk into a restaurant, I sit mafia style, back to the wall, watching the entrance, right? So if a shooter does walk in, I've got an escape plan. How do you go? If the entrance is blocked, you take a chair, you throw it through the window. We're talking California Pizza Kitchen. I know how to get out of there. I know how to get out of the Cheesecake Factory, I hope, with my wife without us getting shot. But
or dive under the table. Sasha, do you do this kind of stuff? Do you sit there? Because I've done that. Go into a place and see. Do you do that?
No, I really don't do that. It's I don't know. Last few years, restaurants are packed so much that you're lucky to get a seat. You're not in a position to choose the seats. It's impossible. So it doesn't really occur to me. But I would like to share with you something interesting. I was watching right before the show. I was watching for the last several hours on CNN. This low case of whether Fani Willis should be thrown away from the case against Trump and other co-defendants, or she should remain and be steadied. Interestingly enough, she was subpoenaed to testify, and she fought the subpoena and told that there is no way that she's going to testify. So they went on with other witnesses, including her boyfriend, that was going on and so on. Finally, all of a sudden, I started to feel that the case is actually getting more likely against Fani Willis. All of a sudden, she appears in a room and she says, I'm striking down my fight for subpoena. I'm ready to testify right now. There was a shock. Everybody was shocked. Like even the commentators said that this is unheard of. It's never happened before because she was fighting subpoena. Nobody could bring her to testify. And all of a sudden she appears herself. And I watched her testimony. It's still going on, but the main thing is she said to her the lawyers who were questioning her from the Trump's team, and they were questioning some details. And she says, gentlemen, do you think that I'm on trial? No, on trial is your client and all his minions, and you will see how I will prosecute and what kind of stuff I'm going to do to them. Oh, that was
And what is that? The oldest tricks out there and everything, because as Kim knows, oftentimes the victim in rape cases and all along those lines is who is put on trial. So this is very much of a common tactic of lawyers to put the witness on trial and everything. So I'm glad that she did that redirect, because that is something that is very common in many of a trial.
Rape case you're referring to?
She's acquitting herself very well on the stand. She looks very human, very convincing, but given the way we are as a nation right now, I don't know that anybody's minds will be changed.
I think she will prevail, simply because you're right. She looks very human. She was talking very convincingly, and I really don't understand what they're trying to imply that, well, because they had a romance or a romantic relationship, so that's not proper, so on. Listen, it's a F word for you. What do you want to tell me that woman doesn't have a right to her personal relationship or a romantic relationship? She has to declare it. She has to ask permission. What are we talking about? Come on.
Well, that was kind of referring
all
to
they're trying to do is discredit her. So then I think there was one person, one of the lawyers, the commentators had talked about how, yes, anything in a trial or anything about the lawyer, personal wise, because that's why many of the lawyers are private, can be used in that trial, or many, as they come across in those closing statements. So they're trying to discredit her as much as possible and utilizing this trial to do that. It's crap. Oh, she's running circles around these guys.
Okay, the romantic relationship cannot be used against you, period. It's impossible. Now, the only thing what could be used, if they would prove it, that somehow she financially benefited from this relationship. And even that is impossible to prove, because what they found out, that her boyfriend was getting paid $250 an hour. Being highly professional lawyer all his life, he was getting from his private practice much more money than this lousy $250 an hour what he was getting there. And he was working very hard, and she was paying him. Even these few trips that they had, she paid for one trip. It was her birthday to him, and she paid completely for all trip, the tickets and the restaurants, everything.
No, but Sasha, it sounds to me, and I don't know, I've not been following the trial as closely as you were, because you said you were watching it earlier today, and I was actually doing one of my other jobs during that time and everything. But that being said, aren't they using kind of the and you would know this because you come from the area that is around Europe, and particularly Eastern Europe, but it sounds like they're trying to use the bedroom spy defense and everything, which is basically what a lot of times people would use even in the spy environment, which is that the spy might be sleeping with the American or whoever was considered an ally and getting information through those bedroom tactics and everything. So we've seen that in television, we've seen that in real life.
Mark, let's get real. With her testimony, she absolutely destroyed all insinuations and all potentials that, well, she's done something improper. Well, she's not reliable. Well, she should not be believed, and she's not supposed to even do the case. I'll tell you, one commentator on CNN, actually, the case was really going against her. Her boyfriend was not very convincing. He didn't do any mistakes from what I understand, but he was very careful in his answers, and he was trying to qualify whether you should rephrase your question or so on. No such nonsense from her. And what was important is that maybe she changed her mind about the subpoena, and she agreed. And actually, she almost insisted that she wanted to testify. And that was, and once another lawyer from Trump's side, so he was something questioning her, and he sort of raised his voice. She stopped for a second and says, please, never, ever raise your voice when you're talking to me. Okay, this is something what her boyfriend failed to do. He was very peaceful, he was very careful, and so on. No nonsense with her. Trust me.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
I was just gonna say, Sasha, when she did that, man, I was laughing. That was so hilarious.
That was really great. I really enjoy every moment of it. Yeah.
Speaking of laughing moments and all along those lines, apparently, because we do know that both in the case of Biden and in the case of Trump, one of the things that is oftentimes accused in the political lanes is this notion of nepotism. And there was some news that came out earlier today, and I'd love to hear folks' thoughts about this on this panel and everything. But Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said on Tuesday, so he said it a couple of days ago, that he does not plan on serving in a second Trump administration should there be one, as he is committed to focusing on his business ventures. He said, nothing in my life has gone according to the plan I've set, and that's only been the only consistent thing, emphasizing that he's been very clear in his desire to focus on his private equity farm at this phase in his life. And we do know that he served as a senior advisor in his father-in-law's administration, but it seems like he's saying that he's enjoyed having his family out of the spotlight after he and his wife Ivanka saw their White House roles end after her father left office. So right now it seems like he's saying that he doesn't want to have any part in it. He wants to concentrate on other business that happened.
Okay, here is what it is. Number one, there will be no second term for Trump. So there is nothing to worry about Jared Kushner. There will be no second term. Number two, what means private equity fund? That means that, remember when Trump made the first trip outside of the United States in 2017? It was Saudi Arabia. And that's where the money came to Jared Kushner, who has no experience whatsoever. He doesn't know even what is an equity fund until he was giving Mr. Kushner, here is a $2 billion. We don't know what to do with the money. You seems to be a very bright man. Please help us to manage this money. So he's taking 2% management fee. It doesn't matter. He can lose 50% of the money or whatever will be left. He still will collect for life 2%. Now, what you know?
Per year, right?
Every year, 2%.
That's $40 million.
Absolutely, but that's it's regardless how well the fund will perform. Now, if he was successful and he'll make some money, regardless how stupid he is, he has to make at least some money. He's not going to make 188% a year, no. But he's going to make maybe 5% a year or even 3% a year. He will take 20% of the profits. Now figure out what is a 5% a year on $2 billion is, okay?
100 million.
Yeah, so he will take 100 million. He will take so it's an old formula 220. You take 2% of all the amount, regardless how well or how lousy his performance, and then you take 20% of profits. You have to generate profits, and I hope he's not that stupid.
Hopefully he won't do that and everything. But just really quickly, Sasha, and this is something that was positive news for President Joe Biden, and this came today because he got a person that was convicted or actually arrested earlier today. And you probably saw that on CNN as well. But Special Counsel David Weiss has charged a former FBI informant with lying about President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden's involvement in business dealings with the Ukrainian energy company Burisma Holdings. So Alexander Smirnov, 43, is facing charges in connection with lying to the FBI and creating false records. And he was arrested on today at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas after his arrival in the U.S. from overseas. And he'll make his initial appearance in federal court later this afternoon and everything. So it looks like there might be some positive news in that whole thing with Biden and the Biden family and that Ukrainian energy company.
Here's the biggest argument against Biden doing anything corrupt with his son and Burisma. In the 4 years that he was out of office, between being VP and being president, he and his wife made $16.5 million by writing books and giving speeches, which is what you expect if you hold high office. Like the Clintons in 3 or 4 years made $100 million. Joe was only VP, but why would a guy who's making $4 million a year risk it all? A guy with 44 years of experience risk it all for some bullshit little deals to get 100,000 here, 100,000 there, with illicit dealings. He knows better, and he was making a ton of money. And he's old. He's too old to spend the 16 million he made. So there you go.
No,
Also, don't forget, Mark, you left out the fact that on the Trump side of things, not only is Kushner not going to run because of everything that Sasha pointed out. I mean, what's he got to run for? He's got the Saudis backing him with billions of dollars. But then, not to mention, Trump's daughter-in-law is the one that Trump suggested to run the Republican National Committee. So he's trying to put her up as co-chair. He's also trying to grab, I think, one of the senators out of North Carolina to be the other co-chair, because he got to have a male and a female. But yeah, that's another big problem.
And
Nepotism.
she said her only purpose is getting.
What's going on? I'm very suspicious whether the Republican Party will survive all this drama with Trump, and eventually he will end up in jail. That goes without saying. And I think they will have to somehow dissolve that criminal enterprise what they're running and start building a normal political party and have a platform and explain what they're standing for, because you cannot go and say for years the same thing. Election was stolen. Let's make America great again. And all this stupidity goes on and on and on and on. It has to be stopped one day. And I think it's coming to the end, all this.
There are some people that are speculating that there may neither be Biden or Trump there, because there has been some speculation that both parties may have to get somebody else to replace them before we actually get to the elections. But I think that is far-fetched, and I think we will probably be stuck with this running of the two of them. But hey, stranger things have happened in the world and everything. I want to come back to something that Kim was talking about earlier, and I'd love to hear everybody on the panel's thoughts about it, because we were earlier talking about gun violence and the prevalence of guns and all along those lines. But there is a whole group of people that are trained in guns, that being both law enforcement and the military. And one of my concerns is that we don't necessarily train them in how to come back into society. So a lot of these people have guns, and that has nothing to do with video games. They were learning that tactic when they were going into the military, but they are not trained in how to come back into society. And some of them have those guns locked away, and some of them don't have the guns locked away, and they're still playing guns games and all along those lines. And some of them, if they are frustrated, because there is an issue of kind of like the reaction, and once you come back into mainstream after having had that military upbringing and that military background. So there are a number of folks that I've got some folks that are in my circle that work in veterans rights and all along those lines, that they are not always prepared to come back into society. And if they run into a situation that they don't know how to handle, sometimes they will go to the gun or the knife that they remembered how to handle from their military days. So anybody who's got any takes on what I just laid out there, because there are a number of people that couldn't get into college, couldn't get into vocational school or whatever else they wanted to do, so they opted to go into the military. And I don't know that they're prepared to come back into society all the time.
Mark, I have a question to you. We started this program and spent about a few minutes to discuss gun violence and so on. Then we should discuss the election, some other issues. Now you're coming back to guns. What's the purpose of that? What's your message? What are you
The
trying
show
to
is World Politics. We cover all things that are political. It's not just the
I already did the guns. We
things, but
discussed
I
guns.
was asking another part of the gun conversation
Hold
and
on.
everything. So we touch a number of issues, Sasha.
We discussed guns for a few minutes here and there. Now you're coming back, guns. What you want to achieve? There is a
There's nothing to achieve. I'm just asking the question. I'm asking the
You will
question.
not be able to
Like I do on
anything.
many of the shows that I do and everything. So Sasha, I'm asking a question, and if you don't want to
What's your
participate in the question, that's your right and your
What's your
prerogative.
question? What's
The
your
question was, are people that are coming back into society that have been trained in gun activities from the military, are they getting the proper training to come back into society? That's for you and anybody else.
What is there to discuss? I don't understand the question.
I don't think it's people. I don't think it's vets who are the majority of shooters. Though there are some shooters or people who were in the military and then they got mustered out without a honorable discharge for being too crazy for the military.
And
a lot of these shooters have long histories of being crazy.
And some of them went into the police. Some of them went into. Hold on a second. Some of them went into the police force, and the police force, after they got out of the police force, because some of them didn't know how to handle being policemen because they had that military background. So that's where it ties into the political landscape as well.
I just don't see. You don't hear about that many vets doing mass murder.
No, but the problem is with a veteran and releasing them the way we have been, they are not released fit for society. Is we have an extreme high rate of suicide with veterans. A daily rate, not a monthly or a daily. So if you want to discuss that is an extreme conversation in itself. But when we talk about whether we're being good leaders and the way we manage our military personnel, no, we have not. We have not been good leaders at all.
When you see violence in the military, it doesn't encourage you to cause more violence to other people. It tends to turn back upon yourself and make you, as Kim says, makes you suicidal. The problem the Nazis had with killing tons of people, there are lots of ways to kill a lot of people, but they needed to come up with ways to kill people that wouldn't drive their soldiers insane, because institutionalized, repeated violence wrecks the person. It doesn't make you want to commit more violence against other people.
But we've got Kelly with us, and Kelly has actually done a lot of research around what is going on with our folks, including our young people, in terms of mental health and all along those lines. So what do you think about the aspect of gun violence and the way that we are treating our folks that are dealing with mental illness or different things in their mental situation and all along those lines? Because I know that you've done a lot of work in that field, and you are also a political consultant. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how it even plays to Sasha's question in the political landscape and in the political discussion.
Thank you. I think one of the challenges right now is the ambiguity. Like we still have some questions as to why there's such a high rate of suicide. We still have some questions as to how to prevent it. We still have some questions as to, what are some of the alternate therapeutic routes. So with those questions in place, it makes it harder to implement government regulation. So I think that carrying arms, gun safety will be an issue for this election. I mean, because it's something that divides Republicans and Democrats automatically. There's a perception that Democrats are not for the right to bear arms, but in reality, they are for the right to bear arms. They just want safer regulation. So I think that one of the challenges, whether it be military or whomever else, is how do we find the cause? How do we find the pathways for solutions, and then putting the right regulations in place to make sure that everyone is safer? I think that's where it's going to be a huge political issue.
I definitely agree with you on that and everything. The other thing we were talking about earlier, and this will be glad that Sasha will love to hear me coming back to this, is the notion of the trials and whether those trials are going to derail the Trump administration or the Trump attempt to have a second administration. But as a political consultant, I wanted to hear your thoughts, because I did hear some people that have said that they have seen matter of fact, I was online earlier today and I saw a gentleman that said that he saw stronger figures of support in the African-American and the Hispanic community for the Republicans. So this is a shift in politics, and part of that was being theorized. It was around the migration issue, because some of the cities that are impacted are on the border, and that might be why Hispanics are changing some of their voting patterns and going more Republican, and the cities that are being impacted by gun violence and by the migrant issue are oftentimes urban cities. I think the top 10 that also have a heavy African-American population. So there's some question as to whether that is the reason that we are seeing a spike in increase in people that are identifying as Republican. But I was wondering your thoughts on that, Kelly, since you do some of that analysis as well.
One of the interesting things I found in working with youth, I'm talking about Black, white, blue, yellow, green youth, is that there is a greater empathy for migrants and the immigrants and immigrant situation. Their friends, family may be from another country. They may be here struggling. One of the kids that I worked with, or one class that I was teaching, one of the kids said to me that they couldn't concentrate in class because in their country, one was from El Salvador and the other one was from Mexico. In their country, there are not a lot of kids our age. The kids our age are often killed for organ donors because they're healthy donors when they're, teens and et cetera, and they believe that those organs can last longer. So they can't focus, they can't concentrate. Now, if somebody told me that story, and I don't even know the teen, I know them from teaching, know them from afar. Can you imagine how their close friends feel and how their close friends are worried about, deportation and all the other kind of stuff? So I think that when you start talking about the immigrant situation, you're going to get a greater rise from young adults than you could ever imagine if you start to play to that. The question is your messaging simple enough for kids to get engaged and then also to transmit the message? So it's one thing to give them the information, but it's another thing to make it palatable enough and manageable enough for them to be able to share it with other people. So that's going whoever can get the message, make it easy to digest, make it easy to share, that's the person that wins.
Go ahead, Sasha.
I would like to mention a few things about immigrants. Now, remember that one of the reasons, perhaps the most important reasons why there is no recession in the United States is because of the immigrants. Because when the people, doesn't matter legal or illegal, when they're entering the country, they need a place to sleep. They need to eat. They need to buy some furniture or some necessary products for them to exist. That all money flowing to American economy, the small businesses, and this is what keeps United States afloat. And there will be no recession as long as more and more immigrants are coming to the country. But this criminal party, this what its name, Republican Party, party of Trump, they are against it. For why? They can't even explain why they are so much against immigrants when it keeps United States alive and well, no recession, no depression, nothing. It keeps going and flowing, and just let it go. No.
We have much less of an issue with immigration, much fewer immigrants than any country in Europe. It's our undocumented immigrants are less than 4% of the total population. That's less than any major European country. There are going to be 3.5 issues that determine the election. One is border and immigration and how pissed the Republicans can make people about that. The next one is the economy and inflation. The other one is abortion. And then this half issue is just how personally disgusted people get with Trump and the incompetence of the Republicans.
I want to add to what you said. One of the things I learned, and I thought it was so powerful when I heard it, is the elections nowadays are based on spreading fear and pointing blame. Period. And you're absolutely right. That's all they're doing there. And it's all propaganda. They really just overkill and over embellish the issues with the border more than what it is. I know it's a problem, but they make it bigger than what it really is. Rather than focusing on the problem, they just want to spread fear, sit there and twiddle their thumbs and point blame rather than fix the problem. So, I mean, and I'm from Texas. I go there occasionally. There is a problem, but the biggest problem, when they say the women are being raped, it's the women in Mexico. that are being waived. And you know what? They're not migrants. They're seeking refuge. They're seeking safe havens. They're crossing a river carrying babies in their arms. They're not carrying drugs and guns. They're armed with their babies and they're drowning. And the Texans are sitting there watching them, probably laughing because that's just the way they are now. But they're sitting there watching them cross the river. There were hundreds of so many of them back in October. Nobody could count how many drowned. And none of this truly gets reported. But you know, it's sad because that's not who we are. We're people. Okay. We're not an animal human race. We're people. We're supposed to reach out and help other people. Once upon a time, the United States, we all came from another country, except for some of us who were, you know, Native American Indian, which, you know, God forbid we let you guys in. But, you know, the thing is that it was supposed to be open to help people to be a safe haven. And instead, again, it's meanness. It's pure hate. People have just become pure hateful. Oh, look, that person's drowning. Let's see. Let's watch. And then you've got the federal government going. You've got people in distress in the water, and they just let it happen. So
There are 21 million people in Texas. Most of those people are decent. It's only a few thousand huge assholes on the border laughing at people dying.
I know, but it's the ones that matter. It's in our military. And you know what? This is what I have to say. They certainly don't remember the Alamo. So if they want to, you know, cut themselves off from the country, do it. Because you know what? We don't have to support you anymore. And maybe Mexico will take you over this time and leave nothing. Because you know what? Your attitude is very, very wrong. It's not united. It's not humane. It's not humane. Yeah, I agree with you. Majority of the humans there, the majority of the people, the majority of them probably really do care, but they just don't have time. The people who matter, the leaders, they're the ones that are turning this into pure horror. It's horror.
But Kim, speaking of that, and I do also want to direct that to Kelly and everything, because one of the things that we're seeing, even here in this political landscape, is a lot of people that are doing what I know even Jatovi calls that otherism thing, and all along those lines, because they are taking a group that they don't like and finding a way to attack them, whether that's a migrant or whether that's the members of the LGBTQI community. Because I just heard recently that one of our least favorite politicians here, even though he might be our governor, God help us, I hope not, but Mark Robinson is talked about this whole notion of the trans people, and if they got to use the bathroom, don't go to one that is labeled either man or female, but they can just go outside, and all along those lines. So he said some very crazy things, and that's just one of them and everything. But I was just wondering your take on that, Kelly, because there is some folks that are trying to do that divide and conquer kind of thing, because we do know that there is a population, particularly in our evangelical Black community, that is not the biggest fans of the LGBT community, and that's one of those divide and conquer tactics in my mind.
Kim, I wanted to ask you something really quickly. I can do LGBTQI, but Kim, when you're explaining everything with regards to the border, right? The explanation that you gave and the story that you gave that's what Democrats typically do, is they want to explain everything. They want to bring everybody in. They want to do the heartfelt story, right?
Not really, but it's what really happened.
Hold on one second. Let me just tell you what.
I'm not a Democrat, by the way.
Well, no, I'm saying that's what Democrats. I'm not saying you. I'm saying that's what a lot of Democrats will do. But let me give you.
Republicans do that too, Kelly. Republicans do that too.
Actually, no.
Okay, well, let me give you something really crazy. I promise you, this will take 2 seconds. When you think of marketing, right? When you think of marketing and, you know, ads and stuff like that, if I said got, right, and it's a 2-word phrase, what do you think the second word would be? Got
milk.
Okay. If it's a 2-word phrase and I say just, what would or 3-word just, and what would you think it would be? Do it. Okay. So think of that, and that's how a lot of individuals will remember things and they can recall things. I mean, Just Do It's been out forever, but like I said, if you see just and you see the Nike symbol, you know, just do it. Imagine taking something that said illegal immigrants, right? Or I can't remember what the word was that you used, and just put the number 4%. or undocumented,
Undocumented.
right, undocumented, 4%. And just imagine people putting that up every single time. So they have the whole border control thing, and you put undocumented 4%. And you continue to do that for a month, 2 months. You do it from now until election day, right? How do you think that will play in the voters' minds when somebody starts talking about building a wall for 4%?
Big.
Then after you keep playing 4% undocumented, 4% undocumented. I'm talking about daily, in your face daily, just like Just Do It got milk. There was big posters that said got milk, nothing else on the thing, but black space, white writing, got milk, because it kept being echoed over and over and over and over again. We can recall it today. So to diffuse some of the emotions, to diffuse some of the sideboard conversations, etc., simplify the message. They thought that under Biden we were going to go into a recession, so put Biden, projection, recession, reality, where we are with the economy. Just do a simple postcard. Make it simple. People are not engaged. They don't have time for the discussion. They don't have time. They will tune you out after 30 seconds. I think it's like 2 or 5 seconds. There's no more than 7 seconds that you have to make a first impression. So if you say undocumented immigrants and 4%, that gets you within your 7-second frame. And now that's something that you can easily recall over and over and over again. Everybody can put that on their Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And everybody can now take that.
And then if you think about,
create excitement and share it. Because remember, as I said before, at the polls, it wasn't so much that we were handing out in the ballots, right? So the Democratic ballots, Republican ballots, we're handing out, let's say both sides were handing out, let's say 50. I'm exaggerating. It was probably 500, but both sides were handing out 50. The thing is that on the Democrat side, when they had 50 come in, it was 50 single people. When the Republicans had 50 people come in, it was 50 people, but each person came with a group of 5. And that's because Republicans made the message easy to understand, digest, and share. And that's what Democrats have to do if they want to win.
Very true.
The other thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I confirmed it with some U.S. Border Patrol, is recently one of the bigger problems too isn't that it's just Hispanic. It is Chinese males of the age of military that are coming in through our borders. So they're lining up at our border points. So it's not just the Hispanic nation. It is.
There's a myriad of people coming in.
20,000 Russians, please add to the number.
There's
20,000 Russians. Most of them are criminals and bandits.
This is exactly the problem. There are a myriad of people coming through the border.
Hey, the same border, though. The same border.
Hold on. The same border. Are you talking about the north border where the people who came and did 9/11? Are we forgetting about that border too? Or are we forgetting about the port of entry? No, again, we're doing the same exact thing. There's a myriad of people that come to this country. We have demonized them, just as you want to talk about the Chinese people coming that are all male of military age. What's the point of that? That's not true. That is not. Hold on, Kim. That is not factually accurate because there's a myriad. There's a small percentage that's there, but no, you're making it sound like You never said small percentage. You started off saying, hey, there are military age Chinese people coming. Just as Sasha pointed out, there are Russians coming. They're all criminals and everything else. We're doing the same thing. We're demonizing individuals. We're demonizing individuals that are coming to this country rather than trying to legitimately say, this individual is coming. Why is this individual coming? And you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're actually you're already otherizing them, saying that this person is bad. Why should we let them in? Because they're bad.
But there is no money.
I think I'm speculating the situation.
Qualify who is eligible, who is not.
You're speculating.
It's impossible.
Because the vast
speculating.
number of people, the
We're
most
speculating
immigrants,
what's happening since 9/11.
most immigrants come to America for opportunity, whether they're
Exactly.
criminals or not. We had a huge wave of Russian criminals come in after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they took over a lot of crime in like Coney Island and stuff. Did America fall apart? No, we've always had like criminals. It wasn't that big a deal.
Here's
And
a couple
the
of
Russians coming over. I'm sure some of the Russians coming over are trying to escape Putin's draft. They don't want to die in Ukraine.
Here's a couple of facts.
You think that
Number
there are
one,
American criminals going to other countries?
Yeah.
We're going too much into the details. If you're talking about marketing, advertising, 4% undocumented immigrants.
Right. But
That's
yeah,
it.
That's
it. Because when you think about Got Milk, right? There's soy milk, there's cashew nut milk, there's almond nut milk, there's 2% milk, there's heavy cream, there's buttermilk, there's all kinds of milk out there. And some people have allergies to this, and some has too much fat.
Here's an interesting thing.
The Republicans are better at messaging than the Democrats. They spend more money on it. And like wokeism is this word that the Republicans use to scare their base. Nobody knows what the F it means. It's just this scary word. And also they scream China. China's invading, China's buying. All they have to say is one word, China, to scare their
7 seconds.
And I think this is where I think, Kelly, you were talking about earlier in terms of short messaging and straight to the point, and what Democrats do in trying to explain. Because if you talk about the word woke, we know what the word means and we understand the meaning and we try and explain it.
Okay.
Critical race theory, we know what it means and what it is and where it's taught, and the fact that it's not taught in kindergarten and all this stuff. But the Republicans hammer you home, hey, we're going to sign up bills so you're not going to feel like your child is being taught to be racist or that they should be ashamed to be white. They play into this fear and do this simple messaging that buys into that fear. And it's the same thing. Like, at no point in our immigration discussion, we brought up, oh, criminals, this and that. But at no point did we talk about undocumented workers have a lower crime rate than native born Americans. Never did we say that. But it's a fact. Okay. But we demonize them to a point where, oh, well, Chinese military people, they're coming. Russians are crooks.
Okay,
so we scare ourselves.
The breaking news is, you know, that life expectancies of women much larger, longer than men, consistently and a lot. We are talking about at least 10, most likely 20%. So because of the Biden's age, and he's a man, of course, there are now two alternatives to him. If he is either unable to run, or Democrats will decide that indeed he is too old to run. So the two alternatives are, get ready, Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi. Although Pelosi, for example, even older than Biden, but because she's a woman and she's very in very good spirit and she's full of life, she can live for another 15, 20 years easily. So she can actually go and become 2 terms president, believe it or not. She's much more popular than Biden and Trump put together.
Can't beat Trump. But so the last time we had a surprise withdrawal from the presidency was 56 years ago when LBJ decided not to run in 1968. We've got less than 9 months to go. It's highly unlikely, unless somebody has a heart attack or a stroke, that either of the two major candidates withdraws at this point.
They can't, because the thing is, they have so much momentum built up behind the two of them, and so many people invested in their argument, their story, whatever it is. You would really disrupt the base to try and bring in someone new. You've got to build a whole new story. You've got to build a story. You've got to get, allies. It would just take too much to get that type of loyalty. Because remember, the thing is, it's getting people to the polls, but getting them to come together in groups. You lose when you have 1 or 2 people who are not engaging and bringing in large clusters. And so if you switch from either Biden or Trump, You have to build a story, and you don't want to build a story. The closest thing to building a story, believe it or not, would be Kamala, because her story is already out there. She has the last campaign, and she can build off of what she did in the last campaign. Or an Elizabeth Warren, who can build on, I think she was one of the leaders, but they can build off of their story from the last campaign. Hillary Clinton, remember, she didn't even contest Trump's win. When they said go back and do a recount, she didn't even want to do that. So because she walked away from that, a lot of people remember her as quitting. And she also has some challenges with not going to all of the different audiences that she could. So I really don't think Trump or Biden will step down unless, if, like you said, there's a heart attack or something like that, because realistically, viewers know that would take too much. What needs
the party that gets would I'm looking at betting odds for some of these alternatives. Gavin Newsom is 10-1 against. Kamala Harris 16-1 against. Elizabeth Warren 65-1. Hillary Clinton 100-1 against her becoming president. There's nobody. The strongest Democratic contender other than Biden is Michelle Obama, which at 7.5-1 against, and that's ridiculous because Michelle Obama has said dozens of times she hates politics. She never wants to get near the White House ever again.
And that's also, keep in mind, they've never really dug deep on Michelle the way that they can dig deep on political candidates. If they started asking her about her issues on different policies, etc., now you've once again got to build a whole new narrative because you have some single issue voters. So if I'm a single issue voter and she says one thing that I don't like, now you've lost a portion of your audience. You cannot, it's too late in the game to sway from anything. The only reason why I said Kamala would be your next option is because guess what? She ran on the same things as Biden, or she's implementing the same things as Biden, or she has the same, paperwork or whatever you want to call it with regards to Biden. So you can kind of get a feel for how she would vote on most things because, Biden has already led the way, but you don't want to build another story this late in the game. Not with Trump, not with his momentum.
She has a great record, but her polling numbers are as bad or even worse than Joe Biden's. She's done nothing particular. I mean, it's based on nothing specific. Sometimes she speaks in a roundabout manner. So what? But still, her poll numbers are in the 30s.
Well, she can't. I believe her hands are tied, and she can't speak up a lot. But I will say this right now: Joe Biden, he needs to get in a really, really, really good ground game because he has the opportunity to build his base. Trump is getting in a good ground game. He has all these people out here who are energized, enthused, whereas Biden may have some who are Democrats. Trump has not so much Republicans, but he has Trumpers that are going out and advertising for him or marketing.
People think he's more energetic. He gets up on stage, he does his dumb little dance. Biden walks kind of like a busted robot. They need to figure out how to put Biden in front of people. The last time he did a public appearance on Super Bowl day, he did a TikTok. Jon Stewart attacked him for this about chocolate chip cookies. That's not the way to do.
Rick, have you seen what's the closest jail to Mar-a-Lago? It's West Palm Beach, and it's very impressive, very new jail, very comfortable, clean, and he has a right to be the closest jail to his residence, which is Mar-a-Lago. So
I think the messaging.
But we're going to have to go because we have a new standard at Pod TV. We have implemented some new systems, and I hate to cut it short like this, but we will see you guys next Tuesday where we can pick up some of this wonderful conversation. Thank you, Kelly, Jatovi, Rick, and Sasha for all of this inspiring conversations. Everyone, just be safe. Let's, pray for the people who have been shot and killed and their families. And let's pray for a unity in our country. And, maybe one day we can all just kind of get along a little bit better rather than relying on guns. And I agree, we need to do something about it. Take care, everyone, and have the most blessed day. Bye.